All right. So, as promised, I have not watched this yet. I wanted to wait until I could watch it with you guys. So, we're going to get into the newest WoWcast, a new era of Warcraft storytelling. They basically had me at storytelling.
Welcome to a special edition of WoWcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. The team is heads down on wrapping up the expansion.
Well, she must be happy. She must be happy. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think her boyfriend asked her to marry him or some shit like that. They think she's a newly engaged girl. So I think she's extra happy at the minute. I could be mistaken, but I think I saw something like that on Instagram. And of course, we have Terran there, so you just know there's going to be a lot of things here. But have you ever read Gotrek and Felix series of books? Principes, I don't think so, no.
Ahead of launch, but today we are joined by a few incredible guests. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Maria Hamilton. I'm the Associate Design Director on WoW.
Hello, my name is Morgan Day. I am one of the Associate Game Directors working on The War Within.
And I'm Taryn Gregory, the Cinematic Narrative Director for World of Warcraft.
So how does the team even approach something as ambitious as the World Soul Saga?
In a word, enthusiastically. We have a really unique opportunity here with the 20th anniversary of World of Warcraft that's fast approaching. We really wanted to take a step back and reevaluate how we develop our expansions. In the past, we might have come at it from the perspective of, well, we've done this a couple times. How did we do it in the past? And moving forward philosophically, we really want to take a fresh new approach and take our community's excitement and feedback and really make sure that's at the forefront of all of our development moving forward. We wanted to build upon the successes of Dragonflight.
Yep.
Right? We felt like we built a really strong foundation.
I just made a video that will probably be out tonight or maybe tomorrow. But I just made a video saying goodbye to Dragonflight and talking about the good things that Dragonflight is giving to the War Within. And I agree 100% with what he just said there. I think in 6 years from now, we are all going to look back on Dragonflight and think that was the moment that so much in WoW changed. That was the moment Blizzard changed their philosophy around dungeons, their philosophy around players, and how players interact with the game. Their philosophy around raids was influenced. Flying, open world, questing, storylines. I think Dragonflight, if anything, if we were to say the success of World of Warcraft was based around Classic, and then we could take another part of the history of WoW and say another real linchpin moment for success in World of Warcraft was Mist of Pandaria, then we have to say that Dragonflight might be another one of those linchpins, considering what is coming out of Dragonflight. So I'm really excited for what the War Within may lead to.
There and take a lot of those successes and look to achieve new goals as we move into the World Soul Saga and the War Within. Some of those ideas would be allowing the players to have new ways to express themselves and make sure that there's
Wait, what the fuck? That's new?
allowing the players to have new ways to express themselves and make sure that there's a ton of
You can
variety
do that?
in the content that they're experiencing in World of Warcraft.
Looks
Additionally,
good.
we want to make sure that we're bringing World of Warcraft to as broad an audience as possible, and we're really working to build new accessibility features and also just new exciting ideas
Reality, how you doing,
that
bro?
we also want to bring to the table. Finally, guiding us and crafting this epic adventure is the narrative, right? That's at the forefront of all of our ideas and all of the stories that we're developing along the way. We always like to plan ahead when we're developing World of Warcraft, but this time is a bit different, right? It's multiple expansions all at once that we're really trying to plant the seeds for these future ideas as we move forward in the World Soul Saga. And at times, I've been in meetings with our creative direction group, and it can be a bit of a challenge to keep all of these ideas in my head all at once. There's a lot of threads that are flying around, but I think the team, is really energized by that that opportunity to kind of tell such an epic story. And thankfully, Taryn is here, and he's going to talk a bit about all of those awesome ideas as we move forward. And he's kind of the expert of pulling all of those threads and bringing them all together.
I will say, as someone that has had the privilege of speaking to Taryn Gregory on Discord, I can tell you, the dude knows his lore. He knows the lore. He's not just the cinematic guy. He understands the story of WoW intimately. And he also, if you guys knew how much effort goes into the precise decisions of a cinematic, what colors to use, exactly what sounds to use, exactly what shots to use. It's not just a case of let's make this look cool from his perspective. What they're focused on is, okay, if we're going to use this color, what could players see in this color? Does this color represent what we want players to take away from this? Could we be using a different color that maybe gives them a different idea of where we want to go with the story? So he's the guy that hides a lot of the breadcrumbs within the cinematics.
It's kind of like the conspiracy meme sometimes with the dots and the
right
threads.
in the
What are you most excited for, Taryn, with the War Within story?
Well, working.
No, I never interviewed him, but round about Shadowlands, Taryn started following me on Twitter, and then we started talking in Discord. First, just in DMs, just chatting back and forth about the lore. And then he joined me a couple of times in call, where he would hang out with me and sort of play games together, right? So we would be playing, me and Apocalypse, and I can't remember, there was Ferorius, maybe a couple of mods. Mike was probably there as well. And we would hang out in Discord and play Shadowlands together, and we would be talking about different things in Shadowlands. And then he stopped talking to me because, well, as you guys know, I was not a fan of Shadowlands. And I had a lot of very mean things to say about Shadowlands. So, yeah. The lady with the black top looks like a hostage for some reason. Blink twice if you need help. I think she's just uncomfortable. It's very difficult to sit in front of a camera. You have to understand, you feel very judged the first few times you're in front of a camera. And if you don't do it all the time, it can become very difficult. It can really be every single time is the first time. So
Working on World of Warcraft is always exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love working on this world and with this team. It's been really, really, really exciting getting to work with Chris Metzen again after his return and setting the vision for the World Soul Saga,
bro.
this new chapter of Warcraft.
you want to know why you should come back to the War Within? Chris Metzen is why you should come back to the War Within.
That's going to take us through the next few updates. As Morgan mentioned, right, during Dragonflight, we feel that represented a lot of change, a lot of lessons applied, lessons learned. Looking back on Shadowlands, I believe that we took a lot from that story and developed new ways that we were going to present our characters, our villains, our storylines. And Dragonflight was the first step, but I believe that War Within is a great leap forward in our ambitions to create a compelling narrative, bring our characters to the forefront, and really open the first chapter in the next pivotal moment of World of Warcraft that will set the stakes for the story that will unfold throughout the World Soul Saga.
What would you say are some of the narrative aspirations of the saga?
Well, I feel that we've set the bar really high.
Yeah. Taryn Gregory has been around, I believe, since Wrath of the Lich King or maybe end of TBC. So Taryn's first big cinematic that he did for World of Warcraft was the Wrathgate one. So Taryn has worked with Metzen for years, right? He was one of the OG ones, and he started working for Blizzard after a fan made cinematic. Him and a friend made a cinematic together, just as fans of the show. And Blizzard saw their fan-made cinematic, and they said, hey, want to come work for us? So that's how Taryn started working for Blizzard.
And we want to meet those expectations and even exceed them. Really trying to create something in the vein of the essence of Warcraft or the best of Warcraft, bringing that to the forefront. The ways we're going to do that is really investing in our world and story. We always say world and story are some of the most critical parts of the appeal of World of Warcraft. But what does that really mean? You know, our world is a character. It is fleshed out through all means of small stories, big stories, but we want people to be invested in our characters. We want them to go on the adventure with them, to learn more. I believe we have some really compelling stories with some of our most known characters, some of our lesser known characters, and some new characters that we're going to meet along the way.
Something that I love about the World Soul Saga, and we were talking about the 20th anniversary earlier, is that's a really unique strength of World of Warcraft, right? We have characters that you've literally grown up with, right? Like at the launch of World of Warcraft, Anduin, I think, was literally in a crib, right?
He was a little boy. He was a little boy. Have you seen my father?
Yeah, exactly. And we've watched him grow from that boy to the boy prince to now the king that he is today. And this journey is going to continue to take characters like Anduin and continue to see them evolve, and others as well. Like Dagram plays a huge role in the War Within, and that's another character that was just a little baby when we started out, and they're going to be taking a much larger role in this epic saga.
Yeah. I think another lesson we learned is cadence and delivery. There were some instances where it felt maybe like the story was very start and stop, or people had to wait around for a long time for resolutions to long-established storylines. And so in trying to address that,
dude, that is such a good lesson. That is such a good lesson. I remember saying this during Shadowlands, quite specifically. Shadowlands was probably the most egregious period in WoW's history of this. I don't know if you guys remember the infamous weekly quest unlocks of the story campaign for your Covenant. Like, dude, some of those were so bloody stupid. Like, you would do 3 quests, that's like half an hour, and then it's just done. It just ends in this random place for no reason. We can continue the story. There's no reason why we're not continuing the story, except for the fact that we're not continuing the story. And then next week we have another 3 story quests that unlock. That was like the worst thing in the world. And then you go back and you do Shadowlands with an alt, and now you can play the whole story without having to wait. And you go, this is actually a decent story. It's not too bad. It was shit because I had to do it weekly. But if you can do it all in once, it doesn't feel too terrible. But we're going to lose at the end of Midnight and find our way back to the climax, Azeroth being born. And it turns out she's not a Titan, not the World Soul, but actually Pig Princess from Alwyn Forest. That's my theory. Higgs, that is one hell of a theory. That was annoying. Yep, the war campaign in BFA was the same, start and stop. Yeah, and Dragonflight definitely felt different. Or am I just looking at Dragonflight wrong? Because in Dragonflight, I didn't once feel that sort of start, stop, this doesn't make a lot of sense. Whenever it was a break in the story, the break made sense. It made sense that we couldn't continue now because you had to clear the raid or you had to do a bunch of different things. It felt like the pacing of the story was a hell of a lot better.
We're really looking at the saga as the opportunity to resolve more storylines, bring up new questions, drive the story forward. And one of the things that helps us do that now is the improved content cadence that has been established in Dragonflight. This gives us some really, really handy tools for being able to have smaller updates between larger updates in which we can have the story move forward, we can focus on individual characters, flesh out their stories more, or even just give the sense that the world is always moving forward and that there's something always new to see in World of Warcraft.
One thing that I still want Blizzard to do, I want the world, and I realize what I'm asking for is big, right? And I realize in some ways it might be too big for them to deliver on, but I would fucking love it if the world could actually react to the things we're doing. That would be brilliant. If they utilize Chromie time a little bit more. But for example, if I already played through the entire Black Dragon quest line, and, we have the new Black Dragon aspect, why am I still going to the Black Dragons and getting daily quests to choose the Black Dragon aspect? That's solved now, right? We've solved that issue. Now, it's fine if you put a chromie there, or if you enter the zone, there's just a pop-up that says, would you like to go into chromie time and see how the world was before XYZ decision? So you can still go back and do those dailies and sort of reform that content. But I would love it if the world would actually react to the things that we do rather than just sort of remain in this static sort of forever snow globe effect. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but that is one of the biggest immersion breakers to me. Oh, you killed. Take for example, what's his name? Flame Boy. What's his name, man? The Incarnate of Flame. He's still flying around, by the way. Even Farak. Even after we killed Farak, he's still flying around. You can still go kill him, and it's like, bro, he dead now. Like, why is the world not at least acknowledging that he's dead? He should not be flying around. I should be chromie timing it in order to get him to still fly around, no?
When it comes to our narrative.
Speaking of characters, Xal'atath is everywhere. She is amazing.
Yep. Let's go.
What do you think about our new villain?
Xal'atath is very much an interesting character, and I'm super excited to see the reception that people have had since we announced that she's going to be, very much starring in the beginning of The War Within. When it comes to our villains and the development of our villains, we have learned many lessons. We feel that maybe there's been a couple instances where we didn't quite do the work to earn them out or introduce them to our players in a way that felt organic.
Wait, what did he just say
our new
there?
villain.
Xal'atath is very much an interesting character, and I'm super excited to see the reception that people have had since we announced that she's going to be, very much starring in the beginning of The War Within. When it comes to our villains and the development of our villains, we have learned many lessons. We feel that maybe there's been a couple instances where we didn't quite do the work to earn them out or introduce them to our players in a.
Can you chat? Because I'm blanking now. Can you think of a character like this? I want to say, why? I'm seeing nipples. There must have been characters like this, no? Like, seriously, characters like this? No, not in WoW, of course not. Dude, you want to talk about a character that was so fucking underdeveloped? That's Zuval. Flux, yeah. Arthas got the opposite treatment. He was developed as fuck and then turned into anima right at the end, right? So for Arthas, it was a bit of a opposite day at Blizzard. But yeah, I would say, yes, there were a lot of instances, at least in the past, of World of Warcraft, where Blizzard would oftentimes severely sort of neglect the setup to characters. This is why I've always said, Shadowlands, phenomenal lore, very bad narrative. Because lore-wise, if I told you, bro, we're going to the realms of death, the physical cosmic realms of death, and in the cosmic realms of death, there is one of the beings of death that has rebelled and is looking to destroy the realms of death. That on paper sounds like a phenomenal story. But if you tell that story wrong, it ends up feeling like, wait, why does this guy never wear shirts? I don't understand it. And he keeps speaking lower volume than anyone else. He's the largest guy in the fucking room, and yet he always whispers. To the point where you can barely hear him. You have to turn up the volume just to go, what are you saying? Use your lungs, bro. Like, fucking project outwards, please, so everyone can hear you. It's just, yeah, there are like a bunch of weird things with Zuval. But I have to say, that's not really been the case in Dragonflight. Here, Robot, no lungs? What does he mean with that Xal'atath features heavily in the beginning of The War Within? Does that imply anything going forward? Higgs, no. Xal'atath, I think what they find exciting about Xal'atath is the fact that they're utilizing one of their greatest strengths in The War Within. Taking a character that everyone knows and everyone loves and driving the expansion and the narrative through that character. So one of Blizzard's biggest mistakes would have been if Xal'atath only shows up at the end of the expansion And we again go into this realm not knowing anything and sort of just following our own nose, if you will. But with Xal'atath driving the story, players know exactly what's going on, and that makes it awesome, right?
In a way that felt organic or compelling. Xal'atath is an opportunity to have this character that, for those who played Shadow Priest and Legion, it was a very compelling character. She's marked very, very highly in terms of like kind of fan favorite, but also lesser known. And that's kind of a magic combination of like, hey, let's take this character and bring them into the spotlight and give them a really compelling arc. Yep. And much like we had done throughout Dragonflight in the development of the Primal Incarnates, like Iridikron and Viranoth and Farak, we put a lot of effort into bringing them into the story one step at a time, introducing them to the player, giving them compelling motivations, making them a dimensional character, making their desires, and making them real people that we can understand and get along with. And Xal'atath is now on her own trajectory to step into the limelight of World of Warcraft, and we're hoping.
Thornshades, this we will judge as soon as the expansion goes live, right? Because, yeah, we're going to find out if Blizzard knows how to deliver this character even to people that have not played Shadow Priest. Jenna, 20 months part of the DJ Nation, appreciate you. Thank you. It's a victory lap because she's the only WoW original character in a long time that fans really love without Warcraft nostalgia bait or books hyping her up externally. Z-Vengeance, I will say, are you forgetting someone? Maybe a certain Denathrius? Because I will tell you, the moment Sire Denathrius makes his comeback, a lot of people are going to lose their fucking minds, yours truly included. Because that guy is cool.
To meet all of those same things, and I really feel that Xal'atath is going to be a very interesting character as we watch her story unfold.
I've been quite both surprised and excited by the reception of Xal'atath. I think having kind of those foundations where there's some of the community that's like, oh, you're just getting to know this person, where other people have, like Taryn mentioned, have been kind of questing with her or experiencing her story in the past, and there's also a lot of
Kiki. Does your boyfriend know the things you're saying? Like, fuck me. Bold of you to believe they still remember Denathrius. Thornshades, not only do I think they still remember Denathrius, I think they already know where they want to go with Denathrius. There's a couple of books in Dragonflight that you may want to read. Specifically the ones about the Burning Legion and the new master that they now serve.
Really fun stuff and opportunities as we are able to plan so far ahead now, where we can plant these seeds knowing, this is the destination. And as we're moving towards that direction, what are things that we can kind of plant, and maybe the players find them, maybe they see it, and maybe they don't. There was some text that showed up in Dalaran where they were talking about like, oh, wait a minute, that's new. What's going on here? And they were kind of piecing together some stuff.
One thing I love that we set forth to do was mid-Dragonflight, in the spirit of wanting to seed these stories sooner, to have people along for the ride to notice the little details. And there was this moment with Iridikron when he was escaping through a portal, and in development we had just slipped this little shadow, elven silhouette in the background of the portal, and a lot of people were like, no one's ever going to notice that. And we're like, that's the idea. The idea is that it's with Iridikron when he was escaping through a portal.
And they're talking about this.
We had just slipped this little shadow, elven silhouette in the back.
How are they thinking no one will ever notice that? Have you met us, Blizzard? Dude, you get... To any of the developers that may one day watch these videos, you do realize that part of just the natural preparation for analysis is taking your video and looking at it frame by frame. And I fucking kid you not. It's downloading the video, dragging it into my software, and then frame by frame looking at the video. So the idea that, they're not going to notice this giant shadow is like, how would we miss that? That's just part and parcel of the analysis process. 40 months, Morny. Really appreciate you, man. Thank you. You're far too kind, sir.
Background of the portal. And a lot of people were like, no one's ever going to notice that. And we're like, that's the idea. The idea is that it's so subtle that when they discover it, it's going to generate all this conversation. And it did, right? There was all this conversation about Xalatath, and everyone started to get really excited. And so that kind of started building a slow burn on everyone getting Xalatath into the conversation. So by the time she was announced at BlizzCon, it actually felt like, oh, yes, we've been
She looks cool as well, man.
Obviously.
Obviously, right? So it's just fun ways that we're trying to seed and plant and prepare the audience for what's ahead.
I think one of the things that makes Xalatath really, really interesting for players is there's an awful lot of them that want to be her buddy, who don't see her as a villain, right? So no villain is the villain of their story. They're the hero of their story. And that makes this interesting, too, because we can play with that a little bit. We can make sure that we're leaning into it. You know, is she really the villain?
Mm-hmm. She's
so
not.
The world is just as
Wait. Is that a clue? Or is she just saying what players think? Because I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't see Xalatath as the villain. And if she is the villain, can I join her? Darian, 15 months part of the DJ Nation. Appreciate you, fam. Thank you, sir. You're far too kind. Xalatath is very aware that she is the batshit insane villain. Dude, but I don't think she is. I can fix her. Not the first time she said this. Yeah, but this is the question. Is that a hint? Is it possible that Xalatath will turn out to not be the villain? Is Chris Mason and the team cooking up a fucking storm of a twist? Like, we've never actually had twists in World of Warcraft story. World of Warcraft story has pretty much always played out exactly the way that you imagine it. What if Chris Mason went, bros, we're going to bait and switch the fuck out of them. They're not going to know what hit them. What if Xalatath thinks she can fix us? Bro, she can fix me. It's fine. I will allow it.
as important as the villains. Maria, what approach have you taken for world building?
I mean, as Taryn pointed out, and I think we've talked about in the past, the world really is one of our main characters. And it's really important that when we go into these different zones that we've created, they feel alive, they feel appropriate to their cultures that live within them. Unexpectedly, perhaps, we decided to make this a very vertical expansion. So we're starting off on the surface in the Isle of Dorne, which has your classic plains, your beautiful grasslands, and big city, Dornegal. This is where our Earthen live, trying to carry out the edicts of the Titans. And this is where the Coreway is located. So we go down the Coreway and we get down into the Ringing Deeps. And the Ringing Deeps is where the machine speakers, the Earthen that are dedicated to tending the machines and the vast works of the Titans live and work. And so where we're really starting to subvert expectations is when you go from the Ringing Deeps into Hollowfall. It's a huge, huge area. You can't tell that it's underground. You can't tell that it's a cavern. It's lit by this enormous crystal. And then as you descend, you're going to go down into the last kingdom of the Nerubians, into Aj-Kahet. And this is all about danger and dark elegance. And the whole area is meant to serve as an opportunity to learn about the Nerubians and their big city there, which has been built.
Acedia, yes, there's a day-night cycle, but it's not the day-night cycle that you would think about. It is a void light cycle. So ever since the Sword of Sargeras stuck into Azeroth, the crystal has started pulsing light and shadow, which might be a clue, but we'll see. Not entirely sure yet why it's doing that. It could either be something about Sargeras' sword, or Sargeras' sword broke something that was supposed to control the crystal. So we'll have to wait and see about that. Xalatath's Voidacy is totally worth it, eh? Chris says, of course. You know what you know what is what.
Built upon centuries and centuries and centuries of decay. They just build the city on top of itself.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that going vertically down.
Yeah. It's one of the things that we learned from Zaralek Cavern in Dragonflight. We knew we were making an underground space. We knew we wanted players to be able to transition seamlessly into that space. The idea was to sort of give you this increasingly wondrous, joyful descent, and make the world really feel alive, make it feel like it fits with those cultures that are living there. The reactions that we saw from people playing on beta when they first entered Hollowfall, which is just amazing.
Yeah, I love the attention to detail in all the zones. I mean, you just mentioned Hollowfall, but like something that it took me a while to even notice it, but when I did it, like blew my mind was, like you mentioned, there's that huge crystal underground, and it's the sole light source. So if you look around the zone, all of the trees and the plants are actually facing that light source. Like if you think about plants out in the world,
that's a
they
cool
kind of
little
follow the
detail.
sun. Well, what if the sun was static?
We have a desire to help make everything feel right. Everything needs to feel like it makes sense. So for the Arathi, they have these airships, and so all of their tables and chairs and props and things that are scattered around their city, they all have these brackets on them because they would have been mounted on the airships when they traveled. Another good example is the earthen. So the earthen are made of stone, and their beds, entertainingly, look almost like a barbecue because they like to be warm. So there's fiery coals underneath them on their beds, and you can see them.
One of the other things I love about the earthen is they actually have these like memory crystals, because they themselves are almost more of a construct, but this memory crystal has, you know, their experiences, their memories, their, you know, life story in them. And early on in the campaign, we learn about that memory crystal. And Dagran, who's quite the little tinkerer, finds this fascinating, and there's like a whole quest line where you get to learn about these memory crystals, and you kind of put them back in the archive, and you get to learn about this culture as you're kind of experiencing through the lens of these memory crystals.
And then for the Nerubians, we
Interesting.
have a really funny local story, a really funny sort of take on what would happen if you encountered a Nerubian who had a fear like arachnophobia, but they're terrified of bipedal creatures because they don't have enough limbs, and it's just creepy, and it freaks them out. And there's so many more examples. The team really had a great time building out these cultures and these stories.
One of the things Morgan mentioned earlier.
You don't even think about the opposite of that, right? Like, what would a Nerubian creature that has humophobia or, I don't know, something to that effect, like, what would that be like?
Earlier was making it easier for players to play the way they want to play. How is that being reflected in the content we're building?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly learned a lot from Dragonflight. One of the areas that we started to improve on and now have continued is some UI improvements around both the icons on quests in the world, but
this is
also
cool
the
as
quest
shit,
journal.
by the way.
We've got some cool filtering that will let people find the kinds of quests that they're looking for. And
Oh, Nexus, 2 months part of the DJ Nation. Appreciate you, fam. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're far too kind, sir. This is, by the way, the map is so cool. Like, holy shit. And the reason this is important, I said it during the last WoWcast, and it bears repeating. This detail, small little details like this, proves that you have developers that are actively playing the game, because this is the kind of feedback that players will not be giving you. This is the kind of feedback you get from other developers. As they're playing through the world, they are giving you feedback saying, listen here, I don't know where this is. I don't know where I'm supposed to go with this. Can you do something about that? Could you give me some kind of toggle? Is there an add-on that I can download that tells me where to go? This is really, really good from just because when you have developers that pay attention, you also have developers that can very quickly proactively start making changes when they feel the game is wrong. So you get to a point where the players themselves don't even have time to showcase or point out problems because the developers are finding those problems themselves, which is obviously where you want to be, right?
And the kinds of activities. We have some great UI elements when you hover over markers on the map that let you see what sort of reward there might be and how much time it's going to be before something starts for events, for example. Additionally, with the introduction of warbands, we know that players may not want to play the story over and over. They may choose to play it on one of their characters and then play other things. And so we've made sure to provide a lot of local stories. These are stories that tell more about zones zones themselves, tell about the cultures in those zones, tell about the places, different individual smaller characters. We've provided those in a slightly greater number than we had in the past. We are making sure that we're using some of our new features as well to help tell the story. So we have been quite cognizant of the concerns that players who don't do a lot of raiding have raised about wanting to see that final moment. And so we're allowing players to do a story mode version of the raid, to have that final fight without needing to go to the trouble of getting a raid group or finding, enough friends to go defeat that boss.
I really, really would love it if story mode dungeons or raids included more than just the final boss. It's a brilliant thing that I can now just go to the final boss, kill the final boss, get the story, and I don't have to join a raid group. The bad side is that it will only unlock with the final LFR wing, which to me, I don't know why we still have LFR wing unlocks. Why can't everything just unlock at the same time? I don't understand it. Because you already have Blizzard now finally giving up the heroic week. From now on, the second raid opens up. It will be normal, mythic, and heroic opening up at the exact same time. Why can't you have LFR and the story dungeon or raid opening the very literal next week? So just a 2-week wait, boom, you can go in, you can clear the story mode, and you're done, right? You've seen the story now. They changed that and pulled story mode forward to release together with Mythic Raid. Have they changed that, Flux? I didn't see that blue post. Can you provide me with a link to that? Because that would be fucking amazing if they actually listened to that feedback. Because that was my biggest issue with the story mode. But then the other thing that I would love to see from story mode is more bosses. Just, even if it is just like 3... Because most of the time, what you find in raids is the overwhelming majority of bosses are kind of story neutral, right? They're bosses that make sense in the raid, and their existence in the raid makes sense, but they don't really make a difference to the story. But you always have 2 or 3 bosses in a raid that does actually play into the story. I would love it if raids or story raids would include all of the story bosses in that raid. Let me just quickly see here. Pre-release, within early access, goes live. Season 1 begins with normal and heroic raid difficulty. So on first week, but then mythic raid farming. Story mode. Oh, nice. Oh, so they changed it sneakily. Flux, thank you. All right, never mind, guys. The War Within is an absolute mega W. No reason to worry. All of my worries, all of my fears have been waylaid. I'm happy again.
Same thing with dungeons. We added follower dungeons that allow people to play by themselves or with friends, and followers that are controlled by the computer. Delves is a new feature that we're really, really excited about. It's intended to help those outdoor players be able to pop in and do something fun and meaningful, and maybe they only have a short period of time. Now, Delves also have a progression system and a whole bunch of other stuff associated with it. So we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to understand and enjoy the story in the way that they like to play, recognizing that everybody doesn't have as much time or opportunity to sit down and, join a big group of people.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the major goals, is not only with variety of things that you might be familiar with, like a lot of the cool outdoor events that you might have seen, and we want to make sure that you can kind of pick and choose the ones that you find exciting and you feel rewarded for those without feeling like you're kind of required to do everything. And then with Delves, that's a new pillar of content that we're building, where you wouldn't previously have been able to kind of experience this idea of like progression, but also building upon the story that we've been discussing. There's a big bad in there named Zekvir, who's kind of a lieutenant of Xalatath, and this person's in charge of looking for the world soul memories that we're going to be learning more about as we progress
Hex,
through
take care of
the War
yourself, bro.
Within. And you'll eventually be able to unlock this Zekvir's lair, which is, you know, I kind of equate it to like Onyxia's lair. So there's this big boss at the end of this experience that really feels like it's kind of the cherry on top for this progression, as well as this story that we're telling as you experience Delves.
What's one thing you guys are excited for players to experience?
Delves.
Oh, I think there's just some fantastic local stories out there that are helping sell some of the themes that we're exploring. We also have a fascinating situation where Anduin, who has had some pretty tough times and is doubting himself quite a bit, comes face to face with Farron, who is a great contrast. She's very strong in her faith in herself and in the light, and the two of them meeting and having this opportunity to talk to each other. I think this is also a really key and important moment.
I'm right there with Maria. I'm just excited for people to get to meet these new characters. And there's a lot of like really fun story, not only with those individual characters, but also the cultures that the team has been building. You know, a fun little detail, which isn't a spoiler, is you actually see these like lynxes that the Arathi in the zone are riding around on, and that's like a fun kind of nod to how when they set out, they actually went with some elves, and there's almost like this blend of cultures that are coming together in this zone, and it's really fun to kind of see all those little details as they express themselves in the game.
I think it's always an exciting time as we draw closer to the launch of an expansion where all of the content is going to be added to the game, even stuff that was obscured or hidden during testing or PTR. This classically represents the cinematics that the team has been working on for a long time and have some really amazing moments. I think the team has done amazing work on this, and I can't wait to see people's reactions to that content. And also, you know, from all directions, every tool in our toolkit, we release more multimedia projects. I know that just recently we saw the story of Queen Ansarek in the cinematic we released, and that's in this vein of trying to build up our villains, give context, give backstory, give dimensionality, and seeing how things are stirring. And all of these different projects are coming together to really amplify and excite around the story of the War Within and set the stage for the ongoing World Soul Saga.
Thank you guys so much for joining me and talking about the World Soul Saga and the world building of the War Within.
Bro, I am excited. Zafan, you are absolutely correct. It's been a long time since I've been this excited for World of Warcraft. The last time I can remember was Battle for Azeroth. I was beyond excited for Battle for Azeroth. Oh shit, Yuku with the 69 months, part of the Legion Nation, the magic number. Really appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm I think by the time Shadowlands came out, I was already a little bit jaded, although I was still hyped for Shadowlands. But BFA was like peak for me. And this time around, I said this in one of my previous videos, it feels like the hype was incredibly well managed for the War Within. They didn't start the hype train too soon. They didn't start the... Like, we got a lot of information, and they sort of kept giving us little bits and little bits to keep us excited. But now, 2 weeks before, they're really starting to ramp up the amount of information that they're dumping on us. And that's just really got me hyped for this expansion. So I am super excited for what is coming in the next expansion. They're very, very excited. So you're excited enough to give in and do the early access? Garion, no. Lexel, how you doing? No. For me, early access is already... So I think people need to understand this. I already hate everything about early access. I despise early access. Even if it's just for pre-order, because I think pre-ordering is a blight on the gaming industry. I don't understand why anyone would push for pre-orders. I understand why companies are pushing for it, but I don't understand why players are pushing for it. And then you add the early access, and now it sort of incentivizes players to give you money, even if we don't know if you deserve that money. I have made peace with the fact that a pre-order gives you 3 days early access, because that is how it always worked. What I will never accept, and this is why I will never support it and why I will not buy it, is asking people to buy the more expensive fucking version just so that they can start playing the game when the game actually launches. That to me is just disgusting. So I can't forgive them for that. I will not spend that money. Not to mention, I have a rule that I do not buy deluxe editions of any game. You get your $60, I get my game. You want more than that? Suck my dick. And we can talk, but not before then. Right? No amount of digital content will ever make me buy anything more than the normal version. So yeah, from my perspective, this is a principled battle. I realize I'm the only one fighting it, but I fight so many other battles on my own that it's fine. Right? I'll do this alone, but I'm not buying the deluxe edition of the game.